Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Unbreakable Her podcast, where we make space for the stories of resilient women. Today, we are tackling a conversation about domestic violence. And October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and so we want to make sure that we make space for a conversation around this topic. So, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. That is the topic of this episode. If that is something that is not this isn't the right time for you to dive into, and if that would be harmful to you at all, please do not watch the episode. There will be plenty of other stories that you can follow along with, but we want everybody to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. All right. So in the United States, more than 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of partner-based violence in their lifetime. Nearly 1 in 4 have faced severe physical harm, and almost half have endured emotional or psychological abuse, the kind that isolates, controls, and breaks confidence long before it ever touches the body. Abuse doesn't look the same for everyone. It can be emotional, physical, financial, or in today's day and age, even digital. And on average, it takes a survivor 7 attempts to leave before they can separate for good. Every day, 3 women lose their lives to a current or former partner, and yet fewer than 40% reach out for formal help and assistance to report what's going on. These numbers are staggering, but behind every statistic is a story. Today, we will hear one of those stories. I'm very excited to have with us Kelly, who is going to share her story around domestic abuse and how she's navigating everything that comes along with it. I want to just, before we bring her into the conversation, I really just want to say that this is not an easy thing to talk about, especially publicly. And so I'm celebrating Kelly's resilience in even having the conversation. So, Kelly, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. That was very touching. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Already starting to tear up.
Which is totally fine. This space is safe. I want to make sure that, you get to tell your story the way you want to tell your story. And so I think a good place to start is tell me a little bit about how you grew up and what kinds of relationships were normative for you.
So I'm born and raised in Maryland, and my parents are married. They're still married. Your typical working class family. Mom and dad both worked in grocery stores. That's where they met. So, my mom barely graduated high school. She was pregnant with my brother, and my dad, he went to community college for a couple of years, but then pretty much worked and then worked his whole career in the grocery store. So that's that. I went to your public schools. I graduated from high school. I had some friends, but I think I was really, when I look back now, I think and I still am kind of a loner. I had a handful of friends that I still like to have, but as far as relationships, I did date a guy in high school, and we were, the high school sweethearts. At least that's what I called it. And we dated for 12 years, never engaged. Yeah. So, and it was one of those I look at now, or even a while later, but yeah, from age 15 to 27, so that was like while I was in college and I was in grad school, and and then we ended up getting an apartment together in Baltimore, and then we bought a house in Baltimore. Well, he did in his name. And so we were together, like I said, 12 years, but definitely growing apart. So, and it makes sense, but it wasn't a bad relationship. We were definitely growing apart. He was my first boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated with a master's degree, and he was like a mechanic, and he wanted to do like the single guy thing. I wanted to get married and travel and all this stuff, but at the time I realized I wanted to get married because I thought I should be married. You're with somebody so long. It wasn't that I really wanted to marry him. I just felt like we should be married. And then like 3 months later, after being broken up, I was engaged and married to somebody for 12 years. And that's probably around when I met you, was near the end of that marriage. So it was just kind of one of those, somebody gave me a lot of attention and love bombed me, but I didn't know that's what love bombing, I was 28. So that was 2006, 2007. Um, so it was one of those where, you just swept off your feet.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look back now, I was not swept off my feet. It just, when you're given a little bit of crumbs, one more crumb just feels like amazing.
Yeah.
So, and that's just kind of how it was. It lasted just for a little bit, and I dealt with just him pretty much cheating and just being a man child, and
Mm-hmm.
no growth, but never really too much fighting. And because I'm not a fighter, and that is one thing I realized growing up. My parents never fought in front of us, and you would think that's a really great thing, like, oh, it must be nice. But it actually made it hard for me to express feelings, express
Mm-hmm.
boundaries, express needs, because I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
anyone mad at me. So fighting was actually with somebody, friends. This is friends, relationships. If anybody was upset with me, devastated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Devastated.
Yeah.
And I realized, talking to my parents about it, they grew up with abusive alcoholic fathers.
Mm-hmm.
So especially more so my dad. But anyway, they never fought, I think, because they didn't want us to see what they saw.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw my parents really drink either.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really realize until the last, I'd say, like, since I've been divorced, which I got divorced in 2019, and I've been happily divorced since 2019. But that's when I really started to try to figure out, okay, what am I doing? It's, I'm the common denominator. You do have to be honest with yourself. When things are going wrong, it's like, okay, so there's something I'm doing to keep having things happen that shouldn't be happening. And with that, it was like realizing how I'm not expressing my needs. I'm not communicating.
So can we go back? I just want to get 2 points of clarity. So you
Yeah.
said you got married
Oh, yeah.
in 20.
2007.
Okay. So that was also 12 years. So you had the 12-year high school relationship, and then out of that relationship, when you got married, that was a 12-year marriage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was single for a little bit, August to December. And then he asked me to marry him, and I said yes. And
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
so yeah,
let's pause there for a second, because the relationship that we're going to talk about in terms of the violence, that's not the marriage.
correct.
Right.
That was infidelity, a lot of infidelity.
Okay. And so I do want to, which some people would view as abusive as well.
Yes.
Right. There's some level of that, but specifically what we're going to talk about is the abuse that you endured in a subsequent relationship.
Oh, very different. Yeah.
I do want to ask you, when you look back even at the two long relationships that you had, did you see, was it hard to come to terms when you just now said, you had to take a look at yourself? That's not an easy thing to do. And you had these big sample size relationships, but not a lot of relationships, right? So you only have, yes, you're the common denominator, but you only have two other ones, right? So was it difficult to find like points where you could say, okay, I need to adjust here, or I need to be different here, or I need to think differently here? Because even though they were long, they weren't, several different kinds of people.
So yes, and I was thinking like that as far as adjustment. Like, what is it about me that, or why did I choose that? What made me like just jump right into something like that right away? But to also add to that is I still am doing that. Like, I just had to reevaluate myself after this one. Like, how did I miss this one? And when I sit here right now, I mean, even after months ago, I realized red flags that I saw in the beginning, and I brushed them off because I was like, it's not cheating.
Mm.
Because cheating, I'll never, never, ever give a second chance about. With that, I was like, and it wasn't, he was only physical with me one time, and that was enough. There was like more coercion or threats or intimidation, and even like getting close, physically close, or doing things. But the actual like hitting, touching was that one time.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, to answer your question, it's very hard, and actually, this has been the hardest one. This last relationship, which we're coming up on a year that everything happened. So I have not dated since. I have not wanted to date. I've been staying very focused on myself and loving myself and finding the worth in myself. And it has been very hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I also have a mindset because of my job as a therapist. You're constantly working to see the best in people and you know what their potential is. And you hear it all the time. Don't focus on someone's potential. But that's part of my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I know not to focus on someone's potential, but doesn't mean I'm shutting it off because it's just my natural job is to listen, I know what you're capable of doing and I'm
Yeah.
here to help you get that way.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing it in my personal life, it's
Right.
just, it's so natural to me. I'm not even seeing it.
And you mentioned your occupation, and I don't want to stay there too long, but can you talk a little bit about how you felt coming out of those situations and then sort of reevaluating yourself and noticing maybe patterns or habits or things that I should have caught that, or I'm trained to. How did you navigate kind of going through that? Like, no, I do this, I'm educated in this. And also in my personal life, I'm functioning differently than I know.
Yeah. So honestly, I wasn't nice to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely like, I was starting to question just my capability on a professional level, because I'm sitting here going, I know all of this on a clinical or just non-personal, actually even some personal, even if it wasn't within me, but other
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
But like learning and living it are totally different things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but yes, that was very hard. And it's still hard. You get so mad at yourself, like, how did I not see that? I see it now. How did I not freaking see it then?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's important because one of the things that is in everything that I have learned about domestic violence and about abusive situations is that oftentimes victims think of all of the things that they should have done better or should have seen, when we have to keep in mind that the reason and the cause of abuse in a relationship is the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stay there, right? Like, always, we should always be seeking to do better and to be our best selves and to pay attention and to notice things and to function in the world that keeps us safe and all of that. But I think the thing that's really hard is that sometimes we think about ourselves as like, man, I'm never letting that happen again, or like, I could never, and it changes you, right? Like, so you start punishing yourself for being good as a human, right? You start punishing you for being good because somebody else chose to be bad,
Mm-hmm.
and do the wrong thing. And so I do think I really appreciate what you're saying about you still walking through that, because the last thing, like the best possible outcome for a person who does the wrong thing and who is not a good person is to make you not a good person. Right? Like, that's the best possible outcome. And I always feel like it's like, I'm too competitive for you to make me bad like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing I forgot to mention was before I was even mad at myself, I was embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
I am 46 years old. I own my own home. I have a career. I've been in this career for over almost 20 years. I've been a therapist for about 20 years. I got my master's degree. I'm not trying to like say this to like toot my own horn, but it's like, you just think at this point, I have majority of my stuff together. You just don't think it would happen. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of made it. I made it this
Yeah.
far without it happening. It's not going to happen.
Right.
They're not, and it's just hard, still hard to believe that, because, he is in his 40s, and it's just crazy that to think that there's somebody in their 40s acting like this, and the other thing is you have people that, I think it's getting better, but that they already blame the women. Why did you pick him? Why did you
Mm-hmm.
choose him? It's like, you didn't meet him when he was lying to
Right.
you
Right.
and saying that he was doing all these things. It's like words over actions. Well, you know how much they can easily do those actions for a little bit until now
Absolutely.
you believe it,
Absolutely.
and then they slowly, take it away. So, but I think that's where that guilt and anger come from,
Mm-hmm.
because we know people are like, she should have known better.
Mm-hmm.
My God, she should have known better.
Yeah.
I could have told her that.
Yeah.
And it's like, And I can tell you, if I were to look at myself now, I'd be like, I looked at old texts and I was like, Kelly,
Hmm. Hmm.
what were you doing?
Yeah.
That's why those, I think, relationships also, it was kind of one of those, like, I didn't want to give up on it, but I also was like financially stuck for a little while.
Yeah.
In this case, he moved into my house, and so what
So
made
why
it
don't
hard.
so why
Go
don't we
ahead.
do this? Why don't we pause and peel back, and can you talk about just like how you met this person,
Yes.
and then like kind of what you saw, what the nature of the relationship was, like when it was good, if it was good.
Shortly after I bought my home, I'd been divorced 2019, dated a little bit, but nothing serious because I was, in the process of buying my very first home, and COVID happened 2020,
Hmm.
and I bought my home in 2020. Um, just kind of working on getting my life together. I just was kind of like laying low for a little bit, and then 2021 came, and I was like, maybe I'll start dating a little bit. I was just on all of these apps, and that's probably the biggest mistake. But, so I ended up getting on the last dating site that I just never thought I would get on, rhymes with Blender,
Hmm.
because I was like, I'm not getting on a site like that that's for what I'm not looking for. But I saw that there were people on there saying they were just looking for, serious relationships, because that's what I was looking for. So I decided to make my profile, and, I went on a couple like dates, and how that goes. And then I met my ex, and he was just so attentive, and right away just very sweet and funny, and we're messaging back and forth. He was like, look, this is my name. He gave me his full name. He just wanted me to know he was real. And I want to say, like, swipe right. I swiped right on a Sunday. We
Hmm.
we started chatting Monday or Tuesday, and we went out on Saturday. Like, I mean, like I said, I'm 40 something. I'm not looking for pen pals. I'm trying
Yeah.
to go on a date. And so he didn't live too far. And he met me. He didn't know where I lived. I kind of kept that,
Hmm.
quiet for a little bit. But, he met me up here, and I met him at a restaurant. He took me to dinner, and then we went bowling after. And our very first date, it was like 5 hours long. We ended up, and it was so fun,
Hmm.
and it was just laughing, the typical very first date. You don't know him, and you're just having a good time.
Hmm.
And so, he's like, I want to see you again, blah, blah, blah. And so, that was in like September of 2021. And, we started dating October officially, and October 18th, 2021, was official. And, it was really nice. Like, I just felt so spoiled, and he was just attentive and sweet. He had a full-time job, but he was working a lot of overtime. So, I knew he had a stable job. He said he had his own place. You're 40 something years old. I would assume you have your own place. Bad thing to assume. He had these cute eyes and nice smile, and I liked his personality. And his profile said that he's looking for one of those like Sunday morning kind of laughing, kind of love kind of thing. And I was like, oh, like the song. Okay. So I was just like, you know what? It's like, that's what I want. I just want simple. I just want peace. That's all I
Hmm.
want. And that is one thing I will say. When I bought this home, it was the first time I felt at home in this home. I want peace, and no drama, and just love and fun, stability, and, just in addition to what I've already got by myself. And he seemed all for that,
Hmm.
so that's cool. So I will say that when we sat down, when I met him in the restaurant, he handed me a flower, and then when we sat down, he was like, now I know you probably are noticing I have a lot of tattoos. And he was like, his knuckles, his hands, his neck, whole arms. I mean, he had on like a dressy top, like a polo,
Hmm.
and pants. And I was like, I'm not thinking anything of it. And he's like, well, I did get these in prison. And I was like, oh, okay. He was like, I had gone to prison when I was 19, and I was like, he told me a little bit about it, not too much, because I mean it was literally the first, but he wanted to get that out there. And I realize now that's what they do. They want to let you know some serious things ahead of time, to let you know that they're being honest with you. But it didn't bother me, because the kind of work I do, I know a lot of people that have gone to prison that are
Hmm.
really good people, and
Hmm.
I know a lot of people that have never been to prison. So I I refuse to judge anybody based on their past as long as it's not who they are. He had a 20-year sentence. He served 13 and then was 7 years probation, and it was for armed robbery when he was 19 years old. So, and other things on there. Like, so he did have like an assault charge, but that was it as far as like violence.
Did
But
any of that scare you at all? So you said, I think it's one thing to not judge a person and determine, their character based on that, on their past, but it's another thing that's like, how did that make you feel? Did you feel like, I don't know if this is, I should pursue this? Did it set off any alarm bells for you?
no,
Okay.
because he was 19. I was a dumb 18-year-old. Now I didn't do armed robbery. And yeah, and there was nothing current. Yeah, he was sentenced in 99. And so like 2020, that's his 20 years. So like I met him like definitely shortly after probation was over, like a little over a year after his probation was done, But I didn't see anything in the case search
Mm-hmm.
that said that. So
And none of that was, and so what I'm hearing is who he was presenting in the present was not congruent with, some violent criminal. That was who he had been, not who he was.
he was very open about his past, that he had done lots of therapy, worked on himself. So, he was involved in a lot of things that I never seen, still have never seen. So I just, we were just from two different backgrounds, but he was one of those where it was like, I'm 40 years old. I've, been working on bettering myself. I want that good life that everybody dreams of, the peace and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, hi. So that's where it happened.
So when you started dating, so we have all of these, the representative showed up and he had his presentation. And so how far into the relationship were you before you started seeing, like when you started seeing things that were like, something's not right? I mean, even in the moment, not hindsight, but like in the relationship, when did you start, or did you at any point start to say like, I'm not sure that this is like deal breaker stuff, or like that I'm saying I want to get out of it, but there's something I'm not okay with?
So it was in February. So we started dating in October. One of the things he told me on that first date was, because I said I'm not a big drinker. And he said he likes to, he called it ripping and running. On Friday nights, he liked to rip and run a little bit, have fun. And that was like, the weekends, because he worked so hard all week, so he would get let loose on the weekends. And I was like, yeah, I did that in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. It's old. My back hurts just thinking about it. So, but do whatever. But I did say I'm not interested in dating someone that wants to continue that life.
Mm-hmm.
You're single, do whatever you want to do. No, it's not. I'm just, I don't have anything else to do, blah, blah. And so one of the things was that he said he sometimes does coke. And I was like, I'm not a fan of that. And he was like, no. He's like, I maybe do it like a couple times a year. But I didn't think of that then. I just thought, well, he's being pretty honest with me. Because but I said, yeah, I'm not really cool with that. But, if it's not something, if that's something you want to continue, again, everything I was like, if that's something you want to do, that's fine. I don't want to be in a relationship with someone that does that stuff, a lot of reasons. And he's like, oh, no, it doesn't matter to me, which was a lie. And so fast forward a little bit, we've been dating. He started staying the night at my house. And at one point we went to his place to go get some things so he could come back and stay at the house. And the place was a rented room in this old woman's home in her basement. She had turned her basement into like a multi-unit shared bathroom, shared kitchen, group home looking place, if you ask me. It looked like a group home. Definitely kind of smelled like it too.
So this was his I have my own place.
I have my own place.
Okay.
And I just remember going, you know what, Kelly? Because he did say, with getting out of prison, things are a little harder for him as far as credit, working, but I didn't, I just was like, I guess things are just a lot harder.
Right.
So, he would just end up staying at my house. And then he told me that some of the people in there had COVID. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't want you going back there. Just we'll wait a week or two, see how things have cleared out. Somebody else had COVID. So he ended up staying with me for like 3 weeks in December. So it was magical. It was
Of
like
course.
snow.
Of
We had
course.
New Year's. We had a beautiful New Year's, a beautiful Christmas. And I remember now it was January, and it was the night before MLK Day, because I remembered I was off the next day. And so it was a Sunday night. I think we were watching football. And he goes, I just don't want to leave. I really love being here. And I was like, my heart melted. So
Mhm.
he moved in. He took off work that next day, which should have been a red flag to me. Went and just packed up his life. And so I ended up having to get a second knee surgery in February. And I even said, this will be nice because it'll be nice to have someone kind of help me out with this second knee surgery. So it was about a month later, and it was the first night. So I remember I was in a lot of pain. I did not have pain like this the first time, and I have a really high pain tolerance, and it was a lot of pain. So he kept saying that he wanted one of my pain pills. And I was like, I thought you weren't into this stuff. He's like, oh, no, I'm not into it. I just want to try it. And he had been drinking, and that was another problem, was he was just drinking. And I thought he wasn't going to be a big drinker. And now he's moved in and he's been drinking.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So, and again, it wasn't cheating. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
we can work this one out. Anyway, So that was probably the first one, was he started getting really nasty. If I didn't give him a pain pill, like nasty. And I remembered he got me in a corner and was like yelling at me. And I was like, you sound like an addict. Like, what is going on? And then that triggered him to be even nastier. And I just remember being like so lost, like trying to understand, this is literally like day 0. So I'm still like on anesthesia, probably coming out of like a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I really brushed it off,
Mm-hmm.
I did. It wasn't like that again, but he had a drinking problem throughout until it was September 2022, the final straw for me, because, he had been drinking so much he would pee himself. I picked him up and I said, I do not want to be in a relationship with someone that's like this.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't going to work. Like, I'm not looking to date somebody that's like pissing themselves and they don't see anything wrong with it. Like, you're peeing on my couch. Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
So that, and then that day in September of 2022, I went to go get my new iPhone, the phone I have. He had left my house and went to his cousin's house. His cousin lives like 10 minutes away, and he wouldn't answer his phone. And now I'm FaceTiming him, and he's not answering it. And then he's turning the phone off and not answering at all. And that was like for 2 hours. This had never happened before.
Mm.
And to this day, I don't know what happened. I know what happens when people turn their phones off. They're with somebody they shouldn't be with, or doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And he told me he was with his cousin doing coke in the car, and he didn't want to get caught or whatever with the person that had it. They didn't want him thinking he was like a narc or something like that. Sorry about that. So anyway, that was our first really big fight, September 2022. And I was like, I want you out. September 2022, that was it. And I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm 40 years old. This is weird and dumb and like gross and not what I want. So the breakup, we broke up for like a moment, but then he's begging, crying, all the things, saying all the words, sending me videos, sending me songs, sending me this, I'm so sorry, like all that stuff. Anything that you can possibly think of was said. You deserve everything. And that was after he said some probably the meanest things I've ever been told by anybody. Like he insulted my body. He insulted my intelligence, just things that what they do is they attack the things that you're insecure about, or that you've maybe even expressed to them, things that you've had insecurities about in the past. Yeah. And he was like, I never date girls that look like you. And I was just like, what in the world? So it was bad. I'd never had that, but he never cheated.
So in hindsight, so while you were in it, did that register as him being emotionally and like mentally abusive?
Yes. And I said that to him.
Okay.
And I said, you are being emotionally abusive. And he's like, no, I'm not. I was like, yeah, you are. Like, these are really nasty things that you're saying to me. You're really nasty. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I was like, so it's like one of those, it's like, I'm not going to go back and forth. It's like, yes, you are. No, you're not. And I was like, I'm telling you how it's making me feel. I don't mean it that way. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean, but okay. Yeah. But at the same time, I just kept going, Kelly, at least he's not cheating. And I don't know why I held on to that. I really don't.
Yeah. That helps. That's really helpful in terms of understanding your story. And I think it's helpful because that is the story of a lot of people in relationships. And this is not just romantic relationships, but you can have these same kinds of
Friendship?
moments in friendships and in employee relationships where, well, it isn't the thing that hurt me the most the last time. So I'll keep enduring it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's so exactly right. It's wild that I tolerated that I would brush it off, but it really did bother me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, I've got, like, you got someone that claimed to love and adore you
Mm-hmm.
now saying some of the nastiest things you've ever heard anyone say about you, at least to your face,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
So I'm like, and that did mess me up. I started to gain weight now, and you're starting to, like, I'm just not feeling as pretty, even though you're, like, starting to say those things. But you can hear like 10 compliments, but that one negative
Mm-hmm.
takes all those compliments out. So that was one of those where I accepted his apology. We got back together. So
So you broke up and then
we got
got
back
back together.
together. It was like a day, kind of one of those things. And then that was September of 2022. January 2023, I remember going to the courthouse and filing a protective order so I could get him out of the house. He lied about hanging out with a friend, and he was hanging out with a friend that, was a very bad influence, but I actually think my ex was probably the bad influence, or they're both. And he did something. He says he snorted Adderall. I don't know. I just know when he finally did come home, he was weird and he was, like, kind of geeked out. And I was like, I told you, I don't want to be with somebody that's doing this. So yeah, that was it. January 2023, I went to the courthouse. I tried to file a protective order, and I froze. He had texted me that morning, all this "I'm sorry" stuff, this, I'm that. I know I'm all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I told the judge that I just don't feel comfortable, blah, 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 but I didn't go into detail. I wasn't prepared. I
Mm-hmm.
froze. The judge found that my claim wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
So he denied it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember being like, I'm terrified, though. He's in my home and I just want him to get out. And he's telling me that he's going to make my life miserable. And that's what he was starting to do. He would do things like use the bathroom and, like, not flush, and throw trash in my coffee maker, like, just do little obnoxious things that aren't illegal and aren't violent, but they definitely make you uncomfortable. I mean, I called it like prison behavior.
And this was all in response to you saying that you need to go, we're done.
Yep. It's because of him lying about putting stuff up his nose.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I'm done.
Point out that something that my therapist says to me all the time is many things can be true at the same time. So I what is striking me is that you're going through this experience and you're aware that it is abusive. His behavior is abusive and that you are experiencing abuse. And before the breakup, you are, you're still in it. You're still, I want him to be better. Okay, I believe him. He said he's sorry. You're also fully aware that this isn't okay. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that tension because and I have nothing to prove this, but I just really believe that that's where most of us live, is in that place of tension between, like, I know that this person is not doing the right thing and treating me well, and I know I deserve better than this, and I know I should require more than this. And also, I care about this person, I love this person, and my emotions are pulling me to this person with the hope that they will do what I am expecting from them. And I think it's really easy to get to be hard on yourself about that, but it's a very human experience. Like, it's
Yeah.
very human. Very few people in the world live in the black and white. Like, we're constantly trying to, because at the same time you're existing as a person who has needs of, like, companionship and love and care. And I don't want to assume, but it sounds like from our conversation, you're sometimes getting some of that. Like,
You hear that. When it was good, it was good.
mhm.
Again,
Yeah.
I gave him way too much of a chance. And I also felt really bad for him because, and I you know what, and I still do, because he is such a broken person. and he'll never admit that. I mean, I feel so sad for him that, it's, I don't know, I shouldn't feel sad for him after everything he's done, but that's who I am.
Yeah, I was gonna say you said it. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think we need to apologize for having empathy or care or concern for people. I don't think that's ever something that we need to apologize for. When people
Yeah.
take advantage of it, like they're the ones who owe the apology.
Yeah. Hold on one second. And he was even nasty up until the court. He said I tried to hit him. So I mean, like going into the future a little bit, I'm almost there, I promise. But
No, it's all good. No, this is helpful because you said when we first started kind of delving into this, you said that the physical violence happened one time and that was it, you were
that
done.
was it.
But I think the reason why this is important, the way that you're describing it and telling the whole story, is because he was breadcrumbing it, like it was coming.
Yeah.
You didn't know that while it was happening, but the research shows that when people are violent, it is not, even if it's their first time being physically violent, they have been enacting violence
Yes.
for a while.
For a while.
Yeah.
So that was also this was all 2023.
Yeah. We're chronicling sort of all of these things that are happening. There's a lot of stuff happening in his life. He's definitely emotionally and mentally abusive, and then he's sort of going through the cycle of, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again, I need to be better, and here's how I want to be better. And so that's all in. When do we get to? So is that still 2023? No, that we're in 2024 now.
Yeah.
And
So
early. Okay.
the last thing that happened that I can remember in 2023, this was in May of 2023, we got into a little argument about something, and I had reacted. That's when I learned about reactive abuse. May 2023, I reacted. I reacted in a way I've never reacted. I was so mad at him for something. I don't even remember what it was, and I got irrational mad because he was just. I think it was just like all those mind games and word games that they play. I can't even remember what it was. But he left the house to go get coffee, and I grabbed one of his honey buns and I threw it outside at him. And I said, "Don't forget to get your honey bun for your coffee." And that triggered him in a rage I never would have expected anybody to, But you've been in prison for 13 years. You don't take someone's food and throw it, and you don't disrespect me. So there was things I kept doing that was disrespectful to him that I didn't understand. And that's where a lot of fighting was starting to happen. Like everything I did was disrespectful. And I'm like, I'm not trying to disrespect you. So he turned my honey bun throwing into, he picked up a chair and threw it at the oven in the kitchen, and the whole glass broke.
Oh.
And I called the cops, and they showed up. They didn't write a report. They didn't take him or anything because I said, I just want you guys here to calm this down, because I'm terrified right now. I didn't realize then, but that's what he loved about everything he loved about me. He didn't anymore. But I realized what I've been learning is like, that's part of the insecurity is like, hey, they want to bring you down. The things that they know you love, they want to bring you down from it. And that's, so when he was insulting me and calling me like unattractive and fat and all these horrible things about my body, and, and then the lifting part, and it's like, I just want to feel pretty to you. So I just was like, I kind of stopped. I was just trying to avoid one more fight. And I told myself I wasn't going to get involved in another relationship where I felt like I had to walk on eggshells, because that's how I was in my marriage. But again, he's not cheating, at least that I know of.
Right. I think you said around May. So walk us to kind of what happened in November.
So it started, November, I just feel like the whole year of 20, I felt like he was constantly trying to pick fights with me, trying to get me upset. And then I'd get upset, and then he'd, go stay with his friends. And so he was just starting to do that more, and I didn't like it. And so in that morning of November, it was November 2nd. It was a Saturday morning. I remember I was getting up, and one of the things he just kept insulting me about was how slow I am, how much I talk too much, and how slow I am. And he was like, you really need to go get your ADHD looked into, which I did, by the way. When I finally accepted that, and I was diagnosed with it, and then had therapy and also started medication for it, When I was finally medically managing ADHD, the amount of things I saw clearer in my life, professionally, personally, was insane. And that included him.
Mm-hmm.
So the things I started to see within him that I brushed off or maybe even didn't see as clear, now I'm asking him questions and he's not liking it.
Okay.
So I would be like, that doesn't make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I swear to you to this day, because I forget the terms, but sometimes I know he was saying things that didn't make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what they would do in prison. Like they would do like word games or gibberish or like word,
Mm-hmm.
they did a lot of manipulative stuff. And you're talking about somebody that was in there for 13 years, starting at age 19. So there was times I know he would say things and I'd be like, what'd you say? And he's like, you're not listening to me. You can't hear me. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you need to get your hearing checked.
Yeah.
I remember one time I went and got my hearing checked, and they were like, your hearing's fine. So once I was medicated and managed and aware, then he was like, that's not working. None of it's working. And I was like, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
stop it now. So I don't know what was going on with him, but he was just getting so angry because the weekends we weren't doing anything, you know?
Yeah.
So that day, it was, like I said, a Saturday morning, November 2nd. And it was just another Saturday where he was constantly upset because, and that morning he was just being so nasty. I just remember him like, I feel like he was trying to pick a fight when I look back at it and wanted me to be mad. And I refused. I learned from that time when he threw that chair. That's when like I said, I learned about reactive abuse. I'm not going to react anymore. I just felt like he was just trying to fight. And it was
Mm-hmm.
one of those things. When I came back to the house, it was like about 5 o'clock. I was trying to hang up some picture or something, and he tried to help me. He was like being nice about it. And then he told me to hold my hand a certain way, and I went and held my hand a certain way. And and then I didn't do something right, and he started to just yell at me. You're so dumb. Like I don't understand. I don't understand how you even got a master's degree because you are the stupidest person I know. And just started saying like all this stuff, and it was like really nasty. And I just remember being like, all right, so my coping mechanism is cleaning. So I just walked away. I went into the kitchen and I started doing dishes
Mm-hmm.
because I don't I don't know why he's like flipping out. To this day, it could have been, from what I understand, that's what they do. They try to piss you off, get a reaction out of you so they can leave. So I'm just washing dishes and I said, listen, he's like, I just don't understand how dumb, you're just so dumb. And I was like, can you just stop talking to me like that? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why, back and forth, back and forth. And then he starts getting up in my face. And I just kind of like backed up and I was up against the stove. We had gotten that replaced. And
Before you continue with explaining like how everything happened, prior to this moment, had you ever been physically afraid of him?
yes. So, and actually, there was two times and it was kind of close to those times too, the same year. And so that year there was two things. And again, actually those two things happened in the same day. I was down. Now I remember one of the things he hated, and I was doing it to save money. He would get laid off and he's like, don't worry, I'll have another job. And I would kind of freak out. And I was like, well, I'm just trying to plan ahead. So at the time we had a hot tub in the basement, like set up in
Mm-hmm.
the basement,
Mm-hmm.
and those inflatable hot tubs, they'll use a lot of energy and your BG&E bill will go up.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the first things I did. Was I was like, I'm gonna cut that off just for a little while. To help save money. I can't make more money right now. You're not making more money right now. So I need to budget. This is what I
Mm-hmm.
do. I have to cut things. And that triggered him. And I'm like, I'm just trying to save money. This is only temporary. He was so irrationally hostile that I was afraid he was going to just rip things and destroy it because
Yeah.
he had already shown that with the chair. And
Mm-hmm.
so he had gotten up in my face in the basement and was just like cussing me out and didn't touch me, but he just got so close to my face. Then he had gone upstairs and I had started yelling and I had walked up the stairs and he went into the bathroom to start brushing his teeth. And I was still in a reactive mode at this point because it was that same day. And he starts yelling at me with toothpaste coming out and he's getting in
Mm-hmm.
my face. And I was like, you're doing that on purpose. Like, stop spitting on me. And I get really close to him. And my bathroom is right across the hall from my basement door, which was open. And he pushed me just enough, but kind of held. It was like a push hold to make me feel like I was gonna
Hold
go
on a
down the
sec.
basement steps. And I just looked at him and started sobbing, like hysterical. And he's like, I would never do that. And it just kind of like went really
Mm-hmm.
calm.
So I was hysterical, and he like held me and hugged me, and he was like, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to I was never do that and all this. And I just remember like, I said, I've never felt so scared in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
it was that moment. And yeah, and that was a few months before November. So it was like the spring or summertime. Yeah. Before that.
Okay.
Other than that, no, no, I
Mm-hmm.
was never really scared of him. I was scared of the I was scared of what he might do to the house to
Mm.
maybe not even necessarily hurt me, but like destroy the house.
Okay. Okay.
Like that's what they would do, whether it's like clogging a drain, like do things to like financially make things just but
Yeah.
do it very slowly.
Yeah.
So that day in November, that's he had, like I said, I was trying to hang up this picture, and he was, just coming in the kitchen and yelling at me. And oh yeah, that's right. So he got me cornered in the kitchen. What is that? The oven area. So it's like a little corner in the kitchen. And I go like this, and I'm like cowering at him. I am taller than him. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like this. And I was like, please stop. And he's like, because he's up in my face, he's like screaming at me, like to the point of spitting,
Mm-hmm.
like you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're dumb. Like, I don't know how I can be with someone so stupid. Just like all these horrible things. And he's in my face. And I was like, please stop. And he's like, he hits my hand. I don't know if it was a hard slap or a closed fist. I just don't remember because I was just kind of like this. And I remember my wrist like snapped back, and
Oh.
I looked at him, and I kind of started to cry a little bit. And he laughed. And after he hit me, I looked at him, and he had recently got his dad's ashes like earlier in that year.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in the dining room. The first thing I said to him, I was like, you think your dad would be really proud of you for doing that? How you're talking to me and how you're treating me? And he flipped out. How dare you? How dare you disrespect my father? And I was like, I'm not disrespecting your father. You are.
You.
And that was another poke in the bear. So then he's like, I ought to beat the shit out of you. How dare you talk about my dead dad? Start going off.
Mm-hmm.
He held on to that and made it seem like I was being mean about his dad.
Yeah.
That's what he turned it into. Not all that other stuff that he had just
Mm-hmm.
been yelling at me, but I disrespected him by disrespecting his dead dad by saying, "You think your dad would be proud of you for what you
Mm-hmm.
did?" You know, talking crap about my family, talking down about my dad. I ought to beat the crap out of you. I ought to get my sister to come down up here and beat it. I ought to hire a goon to fuck you up. And that's where I got a little upset and worried because when he was in prison, he said he did do stuff like that. I just wasn't going to judge him because he never showed that anger, that violence. I never saw it, but it did start to sprinkle in. And so he's like pacing up and down, and then he's calling his friend. He told his friend to come pick him up because he had been smoking a lot of weed that day. And he was like, please come pick me up. I'm not in a good place. Like I'm gonna smack the shit out of her. I'm gonna go to jail if I don't get out of this house. He's telling me to leave. I was like, I'm not leaving my house. I'm not leaving my house. You leave. I'm not leaving. And at this point, I like grab my dog and I'm like in my bedroom and I'm just in my room, just kind of frozen. Because he said, if you get the police involved again, he said, I'm going to financially and physically destroy you and the
Mm-hmm.
home. And so I freaked out. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna do anything. And so I just stayed in my room. My bedroom door was open, and he's got the door open in the bathroom, and he's just cussing at me the whole time he's showering, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like disassociating at this point, just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like trying to pet the dog. Chad has no idea. Just trying to be calm, and he's like, you're effing this, you're dumb. Anything negative, it was just awful. He's like, I can't believe I've been with somebody like you. Like I deserve so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Saying all of these things where I'm like, you would think he was the one that owned the home and that I'm the bum living there,
Yeah.
So it was wild. And I'm laying there like, I can't believe this is really happening. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, but I'm just going to sit there and not react. That's what I made sure not to do, was not react. I heard him after he got out of the shower. I heard him urinating on the floor, and then I hear him saying something.
On the
Urinating.
floor?
Yeah, he was urinating on the floor. I could tell. You could hear that splash because it's a tile
On the
floor.
floor.
I could hear it.
Wow.
He then wiped up some of it and then came in the bedroom and threw the rag at me. And he was like, "You need to go clean that up." And I know. I just sat there and I was like, "This is like
Wow.
prison stuff. This is prison stuff. Like you're throwing
Mm-hmm.
a urine rag." I was like, this is it. I'm not staying in a relationship with somebody like this. finally his friend comes and gets him. He didn't even take like an overnight bag or anything like that. I didn't sleep at all that night. I started looking things up on what do I need to do to get him out immediately. I'm not safe. I'm not comfortable. So it's in Essex. The courthouse is Keslow. It's open 24/7. It's a Kelso Drive. I mean, and I just kept getting scared. I was scared, and then I just started packing up all this stuff, and I recorded myself because everything I wanted to do, I was like, in case he tries to say I broke it. So I just started recording myself, packing up stuff, and I put all his stuff into the living room, and that was Sunday, and then it took me Sunday evening. I finally went to the courthouse and filled out a protective order. I did not do a police report, which if I had done one, they would have arrested him. But I couldn't do it. I was just so scared. I just know I just wanted him out at this point, and I didn't want to get any more hurt.
So at this point, do you know that there's something wrong with your hand?
So it was Sunday night. It's funny you say that. I think as the adrenaline started to come down, while I'm trying to write, my hand was throbbing. I'm trying to write, and it was like a little swollen, but I was definitely not paying the same kind of attention to it. But I kept trying to write, and I was struggling to write. And I ended up, when I finally got my paperwork done, because I was there for a while. As you see, I'm pretty wordy. I was pretty wordy with my writing too. And that morning, I woke up. That Monday morning, he didn't come back to the house. He never came back. We didn't talk all weekend. I never texted him. I had to show up at the courthouse Monday morning to tell the judge. It's like one of those things, you file the report and then you got to go the next day for them to grant a temporary protective order. And then they got to give it to him, and then he's got to come back and we do a final. Like, it's in the same week. So I had gone to patient first. I ended up calling out of work. I would go to patient first. They do an x-ray and they find that it's a stress fracture, or he cracked it pretty much. It wasn't like
Mm,
broken off, but he hit me hard enough to give me a stress fracture.
mm,
And she was like, you just wear a splint and just keep it, immobilized and all this for 4 to 6 weeks and follow up with the hand therapist. And I was
mm-hmm,
like, okay. So I went to patient first that evening. That Monday morning, that's what it was. So, I went to the courthouse that Monday morning to tell the judge about everything. And the judge gave me a temporary protective order. I went to the window to get the paperwork. My Ring camera goes off to show me he's pulling up to the house. So I tell them, he's at the house now. He's at the house now. They were like, call 911 to let them know there's an order, blah, 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 so they can go meet him at the house and give
mm-hmm,
him the order. I was like, okay. So, of course, I get there. He left. I didn't see it, but it looks like he had come to the house. He had showered. He started destroying the house. He showered. There was water everywhere. And he left, and I think he left to go get weed. And then shortly after he had left is when I pulled up and saw the house was a mess inside. And the cop pulls up, and I was like, he's not here, but I think he might be coming back. And sure enough, he showed up probably about 5-6 minutes later.
mm-hmm,
And the cop went to give him, let him know what was going on, and told him, you need to get, just a few things. She's not going to touch your stuff, but you got to meet her in court on that Friday. So this
mm-hmm,
was that Monday. And so Friday was when, we were going back to the court. And in that week, he did text me a couple times, and I told them that
mm-hmm,
he was violating his protection order. I wasn't answering him. And he
mm-hmm,
was just like, I just want to get my, I told you I didn't want to deal with the legal stuff and da 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 da. I just want to get my, and I wasn't answering him. So that Friday came and he never showed up. And so they granted the full protection. And technically that meant he abandoned all of his stuff, but I'm not that.
mm-hmm,
And I said to his friend to let him know he had until December 1st to get everything out of the house. And I have to be there. Cops have to be here and da da da. So he had sent me an email saying, I'm so sorry. And I'm hoping maybe you'll keep some of the stuff in the basement for me. No, I'm not doing it. It's just wild. So, he never apologized for anything. We did end up going to court. He tried to he pressed charges against me, saying that I assaulted him when I never did. And when but he would do these little malicious things, like he put me down as weighing 480 pounds, on the report, just trying to,
wow.
and I was like, look at, this is what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm,
This is what he doesn't take any of this seriously. So when we finally went to court, because I did I did end up pressing charges. The cop told me that I have a year and a day to press charges. And so I waited until December 2nd. I waited until the day
Mm,
after December 1st because I wanted all of his stuff out, which
mm-hmm,
he never ended up getting everything out. And he said it's because I broke it all. And I didn't break anything. The cops were
mm-hmm,
here. They know I didn't break anything. And that he was going to take me to court. And so when we finally went after I pressed charges, they obviously dropped mine. He had no evidence.
mm-hmm,
The state's attorney had like a full binder of evidence from me, from records, phone records, text messages, the videos. So originally the charges were for 2 second-degree assaults. One was for the wrist. The other one was for throwing the urine rag at me. They dropped that one because, they can't prove it. And then there was the malicious destruction of property of under $1,000. When he left the house that night after he hit my hand, broke my hand, he kept kicking at my fence door. And I have that on the Ring video. I actually posted it on my TikTok too. But and that's still a little bit broken. They dropped that. The other thing was, what was it? Malicious destruction of property, a violation of protection order, VOP. So he had a couple of those. They dropped those because they found a loophole. It's really scary, and I dealt with fear for a very long time.
I bet.
Um, um, he walked the streets the entire time. I didn't know where he was, which was fine, but not fine at the same time because I was like, he could retaliate.
Yeah.
And I just got very fearful. I ended up putting cameras all over my house, camera in my car. I still struggle with sleeping, but the
Mm-hmm,
amount of anxiety I get, I'm so jumpy now, like really jumpy. Whenever I see a car that kind of looks like his,
mm-hmm,
yeah, I kind of freak out. It's crazy the little things that still bother me. But,
mm-hmm,
after all is said and done, that's he got 1 second-degree assault charge, and it's for domestic violence. And it says that in the case search, and it also says that he had to attend like a domestic violence kind of course
mm-hmm,
thing. And I'm going to be honest with you, I really have a hard time believing I was the first one.
mm,
I don't think a 43-year-old man hits a woman for the first time, but I think I just might have been the first one to finally say something.
that's true.
And I'll tell you, I can't get mad at the girls because I got scared and I didn't end up not following through in 2023.
Mm-hmm,
But I know I'm not the only one with him. I just know it in my heart. And I can tell you that if I had seen something in his case search, I would have never dated him.
right.
So now he has something, and
Mm-hmm,
hopefully, if there is ever a next one, that they don't fall for it,
yeah.
that they see what it is, they see what it says. The thing I don't like is my name is on there.
Yeah.
But it's not on my record. But like if you open it up, you see my name. But it's that's it. Like that's it. Like he breaks my hand and walks free and still has his job and no remorse at all. None.
So he has a order of protection, but does he still, or I should say, since then, has he attempted to contact you?
No. So in that protection order last 2 years, no, he has not tried to contact me that I know of. But as far as like him physically, his number, his name, nothing. He's on 2 years of supervised probation for everything. But yeah, it's scary because I really just have a piece of paper protecting me from him. I'm at a point where I'm no longer living in that fear, but I was. Monique,
Mm-hmm.
I was terrified to leave my house.
So how soon after that did you start to sort of actively, work to heal and move through it?
I finally went and saw a specialist in February. So I forget when, but court finally, I think, ended in either February or March.
Okay.
But I had started, I was gaining all this weight. My psych doctor like upped my antidepressant, which just made all of the sweet stuff, around I went and got more therapy. And, I just started to do more like meditation. I like signed up for a couple little apps to like really start listening to sounds and
Mhm.
like sound therapy. I got into that. But I can end it with, I've just been doing a lot more meditation. And by the way, like I stayed sober the whole time. Like I never drank. I really felt emotions that I don't like feeling, that I anger and the sadness. Those were really hard emotions to feel during
Mhm.
that time. And they still are. I don't like being angry, and I don't like being sad. But I need to be. So letting those emotions out they were awful, and I hated them. But I will say it was such a weight off my whole being that I never even knew I had until it was lifted.
Yeah.
I had to really work on a lot of forgiveness of myself and, on why I stayed, why I chose, why, I had to work on forgiving myself because I was so embarrassed and so ashamed and felt so dumb. Like if you would have asked me a year ago to do this, I would have said, "Oh my God, no way."
Yeah.
And I just had to, the biggest thing I had to work on was forgiving myself. And then the next thing was like knowing my worth and stop waiting for someone to do the things for me that I want, like to love myself pretty much, Stop waiting for this. Stop waiting for someone to love you, to take you places that you want to go. And I mean, as silly as that may sound to some people, which I would envy those people, I did like the littlest things I started to do for myself just to feel better. Like, as still like when I got divorced, the first thing I did when everything was settled is I took myself to Aruba. I'd always wanted to go to Aruba. My ex wouldn't take me. Why am I waiting for someone to take me? Just go if I can do it.
Yeah.
So it's just I started to, they say, pour that love into yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
So it sounds like you started to give yourself permission to live freely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to do stuff for me. There's always something to be fearful about. And I can't live like that. Like I said earlier, once I knew what home felt like, I never wanted to lose it. And now that I know what feeling true calm, peace, and relax feels like, I don't ever want to lose it. And if I have to stay alone with a dog forever to keep it, it's worth it to me at this point.
Word on the street is that life is just fine.
Yeah.
It's just fine. It's as long as you are healthy and emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually okay. That life is okay. You can still have community even outside of romantic partnership. It's healthy to establish and be in and enjoy your community apart from romantic partnerships so that when and if you decide to partner again, you have a standard of how you live in terms of your peace and your contentment and the environment that you created for yourself. And so at this point, you're not going to accept anything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I'm at.
One of the things I think is important how we view triumph. So, we've heard your story. We certainly have heard about your strength. And when we get to the triumph part, I think it's really important to not think of that as, we talked about this offline, but as something that like it has an end and then that thing happened. But I like to think of it as something that is happening. And so I want to ask you, how do you view yourself, or do you view yourself as resilient and triumphant in this situation, even though it is active and you're working through the experience of it, like still and on a daily basis?
So honestly, I do, but I struggle with it. And that's something I think might always be an issue. I just have never been one to kind of give myself credit. Obviously, like you said, this is definitely a continuing, probably permanent journey. I know I've come a long way. I do feel very resilient because I think about where I was at the beginning of this year and where I am right now. I would say the resilience is how much of my worth I've really seen, but just trying to make sure I'm not like, staying grounded, I guess, which I know I am, but it's, I just don't want to come off as arrogant. I don't think I'm being arrogant. But then I hear you, it's like, no, say it.
You got to say it.
You worked hard. I did work hard to get where I'm at. I did.
Because if you don't say it, it leaves space for other people to tell you what you're not.
Yeah.
And so so I'm going to end with this. I'm going to say to you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for what it took to talk about it again, especially now approaching the 1 year anniversary of having experienced physical violence. Thank you for that. And I also want to remind you that you are unbreakable. It doesn't always feel like that. And it feels like there have been things that have happened to you that have broken you, but they haven't. because you're still here. They haven't. So you are Unbreakable Her. You're a perfect example of why this space exists. And I am really grateful that you took the time to spend with me today. And don't stop telling your story in whatever forum that you want to. I think one of the things that is really important about your story is that the one instance of physical violence was just a piece of the abuse that you were experiencing consistently over time. And you survived it. You survived it.
It was.
You survived it.
Yeah.
You survived it. So thank you. And I'm really thankful. So make sure you like the episode, share it, comment on it, and review it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Also, subscribe to the YouTube page and comment on there, engage with it. I'll be on there. So thanks everybody for listening or watching, and we'll see you next time. Stay unbreakable.